Right. I have a question here from Diogo Osorio. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that right. Jamie, I'm 16 years old, 70 kilos, 178 centimeters height, and I've been doing exercises in the gym since 13 years old, and I was very skinny, weighing 53 kilos at 13 years old. I've developed my muscles a lot now, but my pectoral is still bigger on one side more than the other. The question I want to ask is Pectus Carinatum necessarily associated with Marfan Syndrome, or can I have Pectus Carinatum and not Marfan Syndrome? Do you sometimes see your heart bumping a little in the mirror? Right, is Pectus Carinatum necessarily associated with Marfan Syndrome? Yes, it is. If you have Marfan Syndrome, you can have Pectus Carinatum. Or if you have Marfan Syndrome, I think you more often than not have Pectus Carinatum. So if you have Pectus Carinatum, you might have Marfan Syndrome. So you need to go and get checked. If you care, you need to go and get checked, an echocardiogram, and they will tell you if you've got Marfan Syndrome or not. Some of the other Marfan Syndrome traits or characteristics or symptoms are arched palate, flat feet, really long limbs, and also hypermobility in the joints and that. So yes, it is associated with Marfan syndrome, and also Marfan syndrome is associated with a lot of heart problems. So this is one of those things that can really end your life prematurely if you are not careful. Now, if you look into it and you look into some of the scientific reports on Marfan syndrome, two people actually died suddenly. They had sudden death syndrome, just randomly, young people. Like, one was a teenager, I think, and one was in their 20s. Really young, after they took pharmaceutical drugs given to them by the doctor. So my number one would be stay away from those pharmaceutical drugs, because we really don't know what's in them. We don't know what the reaction is to the human body. And the way they find out is by giving it to people, and then people die, and then the next person doesn't have to die. You know, it's crazy. So don't be the first person to die on these drugs. Don't even take any of them unless you have to. You know, I really would look into it. Do not take any of those things, because people fucking died just randomly. Their hearts just stopped. So is Pectus Carinatum necessarily associated with Marfan syndrome? Yes, it is. I would also avoid high stress situations. You know, if your family's really stressing you out, you need to figure something out. Start meditating, taking time outside. You need to figure something out to get away from that stress, because stress can cause an aortic aneurysm, and that's the big thing that we want to avoid, because that's like our heart. Basically, when you've got Marfan syndrome, all your limbs are long, you know, and you've got hypermobility in your joints. So that also affects all your capillaries and all the stuff that's in there. So in my thinking and my understanding, it's like you've got your heart valve, and then because we're like hypermobile and there's like high stress situations, or you take drugs, it like loosens it, and then blood can leak out into your body, and then like you're not getting blood to the important things, and then you just die. You know, it's not a bad death, but you don't want to die. You know what I mean? So yeah, avoid all the high stress exercises. Don't go running for miles and miles and miles where your heart's like bang, bang, bang. Because I used to do that. Like back when I made those first videos, I used to run 1 mile in like 9 minutes. Which ain't impressive, but it's like, in hindsight, I shouldn't have been doing that, because I have a vulnerable like body for that. You know, I'm not... Physically, I'm like long-limbed, so I should be doing stuff like that, like running long distance. But I have a genetic deformity, or whatever it's called, genetic mutation, which makes it so my heart is more vulnerable to that. So stressing it out is just going to make my life shorter. And I want a long life. I want a long, good quality life. So that's something that we've got to realise here. When you've got Pectus Carinatum and Marfan syndrome or whatever, you're probably going to have on average, a shorter life than the average person. So that's why we want to make our lives high quality. We want to have a fucking 6-pack the whole time. You know, when you want to be healthy, looking around at other people like, damn, you're not doing it right. You know, you want to be doing it right, because you're not here for long. We're not here for long. So let's fucking do it right, okay? Let's like eat right. Let's live right. Let's have fun, you know. Let's fucking do it right, you know what I'm saying? Right. So do you sometimes see your heart bumping a little bit in the mirror? Yes, I do, especially after a little bit of stress or exercise. You know, I don't know what it is, if the heart is just like closer to the outside or what, but yes, I do. So the big takeaway from all this is stay away from things that can cause a surprise stress to your body. You know, so stress with your family, friends, whatever, work. Stay away from that kind of stress. Stay away from physical stress like running. And also stay away from the drugs. Weed and that. Maybe that's okay, but don't go for the pharma drugs. The ones that they give you in pills, because those just affect your body like crazy. And 2 people died, after taking them. So I personally stay away from them, and I would be happy never having a pharma drug in my life. But yes, do you sometimes see your heart bumping a little in the mirror? Yeah, man, I see my heart bumping in the mirror. You've got to avoid those situations that make your heart bump and you can actually see it. I can't really see it right now, but I'm sure if I went out for a run and I came back, it's like. So I just want to avoid that. I want to avoid all the stresses. I want to chill out, go for long walks, eat the proper food, because what we're actually finding out now is if you don't eat the proper food, there's all sorts of effects, which are just absolutely crazy. So look into what kind of foods that people should be eating. And if you're really interested in that, then YouTube John Rose, JohnRose, or Dr. Robert Morse. Those 2 people have excellent information on diets and that, and it will really make you think. One example is they gave cats cooked food and raw food, and the ones that ate cooked food had longer limbs than that, and they had bigger bodies, but all their limbs were brittle. So that makes you think. And then the cats that ate raw food, they were perfectly normal. So that makes you think people are getting bigger. So maybe our bones are getting bigger and brittle. We're meant to be eating raw food. That's basically what it is. We're meant to eat raw food. Raw food has double the amount of protein in it. Watch those guys for proper nutrition advice. And yeah, just stay away from high stress. And if you've got any more questions, let me know and I will make a video as soon as possible.